Hello and welcome back to another special edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director at GNAT-TV's News Project, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today on Thursday, August 6th. It's also a great pleasure to be joined by two local educators who are going to be telling us a little bit about how their schools are going to be reopening this fall. As we all know, a very complicated scenario unfolding with the coronavirus pandemic and how that's going to impact school reopening. So we're really pleased to have with us today Randi Lowe, who is the superintendent of the Battenkill Supervisory Union. Randi, thank you very much for being with us today. And again, congratulations on your timing for becoming a new superintendent for the first year. Quite a start. And we're also very pleased to be joined today by William Bazyk, who is the school superintendent of the Battenkill Valley Supervisory Union, which includes the towns of Arlington and Sandgate. Thank you both for making the time to be with us today and share some of your plans and thinking about how schools will be reopening. Obviously a gigantic subject, not just here in our corner of Vermont, but statewide and nationally as well. So many implications riding on how that's going to all work. So without any further ado, let's get started. Randi, we'll let you get us going here. What are the plans for the schools in the BRSU for this coming September?
So we have approached this from what I'm referring to as a phased-in model. So we'll begin on September 8th with phase one, in which we will be starting primarily in a distance learning mode. And we'll have some students who really we feel need to be in school in order to meaningfully access their education. We'll have those students in our classrooms. So about 10 to 20% of our students will come to school, be in small pods, and be proctored by staff at the buildings. And so the intent and the rationale behind this is that we've got a lot of new health and safety protocols, cleaning protocols that are going to be in place in our schools. It means that we're going to be operating very, very differently than we ever have before. And we're planning very well. We'd like to be able to have the opportunity to start getting used to all the new health and safety protocols and screenings with a smaller number of staff and students without having so many people in the buildings at one time. Once we have that pretty well established and we feel we've worked out the kinks, then we'll move into phase two. I will say phase one, our expectations, our teachers are going to be teaching from their classrooms. So it'll give the staff and teachers a chance to be back in the buildings, learning the routines and the protocols themselves, feeling really pretty comfortable and competent with what they need to do before we bring in half of our students. So phase two, we will be opening our schools up to our students in grades kindergarten through fifth grade or sixth grade at Sunderland and Meadowy. And we'll be bringing half the students in at one time. Kids will be divided into two cohorts, cohort A and cohort B. Cohort A will attend school on Monday, Tuesday, cohort B on Thursday, Friday. Wednesday will be a distance learning day and an opportunity for us to really deep clean our buildings between cohorts of students. Once we feel like our youngest students are, again, established, we've got good routines and protocols, things are running well, we'll bring in our middle schoolers for phase three. And they will be entering exactly the way that our younger students did. So our plan for the foreseeable future is that once we're in school, we'll be operating on an A-B cohort with half of our students in. The hope is that phase one lasts, 2-3 weeks, and then phase two lasts 2-3 weeks. So hopefully by, mid-October, we've got everybody back in the building to some capacity. We are also going to be offering a distance learning option for all of our families. So families will have a choice of using home study through the Agency of Education and working through the Agency of Ed on that path. We will also offer a full distance learning option, so students can be continuing to be enrolled in the BRSU, connected with the class, but accessing their instruction and programming from home.
Okay. And Bill, what's going to be the game plan down in the Battenkill Valley Supervisory Union?
Yeah, so we surveyed our parents, Andrew, and they essentially really wanted in-person learning. So we are going to start on a small phase in, about a week-long phase in for our elementary school K through 5. But we're starting on September 8th, the statewide start date. And we will be doing in-person learning. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Our elementary school has about 210 students in it. But our community is very supportive. Our teachers have been very supportive. For K-5, we're going our GIST schedule is naturally Wednesdays, where we release at noon. So K-5 or pre-K-5 will be releasing at noon for cleaning. Besides that, they will be in school. We are offering a remote learning for pre-K through 5. And so far we've had about maybe 15% of our population take that. But generally, I think about 85% of our students we expect to see on September 8th. At the high school, or grades 6 through 12, it was a little higher, probably about 20% are going to take advantage of the remote learning. And we'll see about 80% of those students in school. They will have complete remote learning on Wednesday. They will attend in person on the other days, but they will be out on the Wednesdays and remote learning being done there. But generally, I mean, we have students in right now. We've brought in students for both driver's ed. We have a driver's ed course going on at the high school, and we have our special ed students have been in all summer. So we feel confident that we are going to be able to safely and strategically bring in all our students. And hopefully by that second week in September, our schools will be full and children will be learning.
It seems like across the country, and this probably pertains more in states that are sort of quote unquote hotspots currently than perhaps is the case here, but it seems like among teachers and faculty members, there's been some concerns about going back into the classroom for health reasons. Has that been an issue for either of you? Have you heard any pushback from any of your faculty members saying, hey, I'm not really comfortable with being back in the classroom again at this point?
We've made our safety plans and made our reopening plans with our teachers giving input the whole time. So we've heard loud and clear too from our teachers that they want to be back with the students. There's obviously some of our staff members who have health concerns and such, and we're working with those individual members. But overall, the teachers of Arlington have been outstanding. They've been partners with us. They're excited to come in and see students. In fact, I had to turn away teachers this summer because we generally have a large summer camp with 70, 80 children at our elementary school, but we didn't have that this year. So we had people seeking employment that we had to turn away this summer. So I'm confident our schools will be open and the teachers will be able to provide for our students.
And Randy?
Yeah, so I would echo a lot of what Bill said. We've got, our teachers they love teaching, and they're incredible professionals, and people have been dedicating a tremendous amount of time and effort and energy to preparing for this school year. I'm also very confident in the health and safety protocols we're putting in place. The Department of Health knows what they're doing. We are poised to be able to open schools very safely in Vermont. And we have a good understanding of what needs to happen to make that happen. Certainly the significant majority of our teachers and staff are ready, willing, and able to come back. We do have some people who, have concerns due to their own or close family members' health and pre-existing conditions. And so we are working and, looking at our leave options and accommodations, and we are working very hard to meet people's needs. The last thing we want is to lose employees over this. We've got excellent teachers, and we're working hard to figure out how to address the individual needs that we do have.
I was wondering if you could both talk a little bit about how the remote learning part of this is going to work. Is it going to be the case where the students who are learning from home or learning remotely, will they be sort of basically attending the same classes as their counterparts are in the school building? And does that mean that the teacher is teaching partially to a group of students in a classroom and then also to another group that's tuning in online? Is that how it works, or do those two things happen completely separately?
So, I think that different districts are approaching this differently. I'll jump in, Bill, with what we're doing first. We've had a couple of people in our system who have taken a deep dive in learning about best practices of distance learning. So we knew in March that we were kind of dropped into this emergency situation without the time to dedicate to what are the best practices around how students learn best in a remote setting. We've taken advantage of the time we've had, and folks have really engaged in learning about what to do. And so we are applying those principles to the model that we're using. Our teachers are right now engaged in some professional development around effective best practices in distance learning, and that will continue prior to the school year. And they're also learning about the best use of a learning management system. We also conducted a lot of surveys, as I believe most districts in Vermont have. Feedback from teachers and from students was we needed more consistent platforms to operate from. So we as a system have decided to be using Seesaw, which is a learning management system for younger students. Google Classroom is a learning management system for our older students. And so all learning will happen, all activities, lessons, practice, expectations will be housed in the learning management system for all students. So we're going to be not operating multiple platforms. If you're in cohort A, you're doing this, cohort B, you're doing this, you're distance learning, you're doing this. We are not doing that. That would absolutely be an untenable ask of our teachers in a completely confusing way to operate our schools. So everything will be funneling through the learning management system so that there will be recorded videos, there'll be lessons, there'll be activities. There will be times every day where we're looking at 2 different times a day where all students will be together or have access to the teacher, and those will be well-defined specific times so that parents or caregivers can work that into their schedule. And our teachers are learning how to do this so that it is seamless, it is streamlined, it's as efficient as it can be, and we maintain learning for our students.
Fascinating. And Bill, what's going to be how will remote learning work down in Arlington?
Yeah, I think there's a couple buzzwords going around in the education field now between synchronous and asynchronous. If we hear that one more time, it's just like saying new normal. All these new sayings coming out that we never knew. I didn't even know Zoom existed a few months ago. Anyway, so but we are doing asynchronous learning, which means it's kind of a separate type of academy, if you will, for our elementary school. We're actually taking one of our teachers. So if you sign up, you do need to sign up by a certain date. I think it's already passed, but we could be a little flexible with that. Those people those children will go into an academy and have a teacher and have their own learning. They will not be part of the classes, if you will. And that's pre-K through 5. But we're doing it different at the high school. High school will be synchronous, meaning that we are going to actually put cameras and microphones in the classroom. So students can, and that can be a lot more flexible, so students can kind of come and go if they please. One of the things, and we're actually talking about this, Superintendent Lowe and myself were talking about this morning at another meeting, is we're very concerned about the absences that are going to be very temporary. So in other words, if, God forbid my parents live in Florida, if something happened and I had to fly down to Florida tomorrow, I have to come back and quarantine for 2 weeks. We're going to see a lot of that with our students. So we really need that flexibility to be able to, we don't want a student to be out of school for 2 weeks. So we have to have that flexibility to have those students be able to come in synchronously and be able to keep going with their classes. Because I think that's what we're going to anticipate. I'm not worried about mass closing of the school again. What I'm more worried about are these temporary absences that are going to occur as we have these safety protocols that do require people to quarantine. So that was our approach with the remote learning, and we are using the Google Classrooms as our platform.
And can I jump in, Andrew, just with one follow-up, because I think that that Bill raised a really important point that is something that I think, again, most systems are really looking at is how do you create a structure that can maintain continuity of learning regardless of what's happening? And then there are a number of different approaches, and you just heard both of us talk about how we're tackling that using two different approaches. And I think that that's an important takeaway, is that there's not one way to do this and do it well. There's multiple ways to do it and do it well. And it's an interesting journey to be on as a system, as leaders, to be leading this work which we haven't been faced with before.
What happens if, let's say, one student tests positive for COVID at some point? Is that like a trigger point where you say we have to shut the entire school down or go to completely remote learning, or would there have to be more than one student, let's say, to kind of qualify to, go to a plan B?
Well, luckily or unluckily, we did have that COVID crisis scare here in the area that gave both Superintendent Lowe and myself a test run to see how we would deal with those types of issues. A good test run, because it came out obviously very low numbers. We actually had students in school then, and there was a talk of people testing positive in Sunderland and Arlington. So we talked to the parents. We did the health protocols as they came in, asked them where they've been and stuff. We only had one parent decide to pull the child out. I mean, I think that if we had one student, there's protocols in the Safe Start school that we followed, shutting down the area and those types of things. But we would probably rely on the state to shut down, tell us when to shut down. I'm not sure if I would want to make the decision, but I don't think one or two children or one or two people would be a deciding factor for the Arlington school system.
Yeah, I mean, my approach is going to be, if we have a positive case, or we are presumed positive case, then I would immediately contact the Department of Health. I would advise those people who potentially might have tested positive to also call the Department of Health. They are the experts in contact tracing. They are quickly able to assess the situation and provide guidance to us as superintendents. And so I would follow their lead. Every situation, is its own unique situation. So that's going to be my approach, is immediately contacting the Department of Health, putting the right people in touch with the right folks. We do know that we would move people out of the setting. There's, as you just heard, there are protocols around moving a group of students to another location and shutting down the space and cleaning. So all of those protocols would be put in place. But as far as decision making, we follow the guidance.
Back when you folks were putting together your school budgets for this coming year, I'm sure you never anticipated a lot of the costs that were now sort of emerging. Have you been able to get state assistance for that?
For us, it's a combination. There are COVID relief funds. There will be ESSER funds coming. And we're working within our grant funds, Title I, Title II, Title IV funds. We're making strategic decisions about what we can cover that way. Ultimately, there will be costs that come out of our local budget, but we're doing the best we can to use alternative sources of funding. Yeah,
we use those same type of entitlement programs that Superintendent Lowe was talking about. So we have, our unbudgeted PPE items are covered through some of those funds. So we're all set there. We're just more concerned about FY 2022 school year, when we all know there's a large budgetary gap at the state level in the education fund. So I think we're more nervous about the long-term viability of our school budget than we are initially getting these PPE equipments and the protocols and things in place. And
do you feel comfortable that the students will be observing social distancing and wearing face masks and all that sort of the basic things we're going to be doing just to make sure the safety factor is as high as possible, or are you concerned that that's going to be a problem?
In Arlington, I'm not concerned at all. We have a very traditional school. The nice thing about Arlington is we're one of the few left in Vermont that we're actually, a town school district that is K through 12, and it's Arlington is a real community. I'm not worried about our students at all. They generally come in and have always followed our rules and followed them well. And and I think one of the things that we have to talk about is this is a community effort. I mean, that if people want to come back to schools And that's what we heard from our community loud and clear. They want to come back to schools. Not only have to follow these protocols just within the 6 hours of school day. I mean, we have to wear our masks, in grocery stores. We have to socially distance. We have to keep to a cohort of social friends outside of school. We have to obey the quarantine. We have to watch where we travel. I mean, those are all things that are going to make school successful. We're just the small, we're trickle down where people spend a little bit of time during the week. So my hope is that people are already doing these. And if they're not, then schools will have to shut down, because we're not going to be able to live in a society like we have last school year. So we'll know. But my hope is that we heard from our community that the children and the parents want them back in school. So my hope is that 24 hours a day we're following good social guidelines to the pandemic.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. We've got a great community. There are guidelines that we are all expected to be following in the state of Vermont, and that exists outside the scope of our school walls. We will be certainly teaching, we'll be practicing, we'll be reinforcing, we'll be helping our younger students if they're struggling. We are going to take a really positive community-based approach as well. We're focusing on relationship safety and trust as at the onset of our year, and building that sense of community and caring for each other, which we already do very, very well in our schools, and adjusting to the new norm. I have confidence in our ability as well. I'm not significantly concerned about that.
One of the things I've been reading recently is that there's been a lot of enrollment spikes in some school districts, that people who either already own second homes here or had traveled to Vermont or buying homes here. And because Vermont's a relatively, I guess we're one of the national leaders in terms of controlling this virus, at least up to this point. Have either of you seen like some new students coming into your districts as a result of this?
We definitely have people moving in across our communities. What we don't have a handle on right now is where we're going to land as far as enrollments at the start of the year. We're not sure who's going to take advantage yet of our distance learning option. And we don't have all new students enrolled in our schools yet. So we don't yet have our heads wrapped around sort of exactly what the numbers are going to be in our classrooms. The BRSU has 3 different school districts. One of them is the Winhall School District, which, as you know, is a non-operating school district. And we had their board meeting earlier this week, and they're seeing a significant increase in students, which leads to very, very significant financial challenges for them. So that community is moving forward with reaching out to legislators with the hope of the fact that maybe we'll be able to get some legislative action to kind of relieve them of some of what they are looking at as they look ahead to FY22.
Is that the case also down in Arlington, Bill?
Yeah, we have a non-operating town as well in Sandgate that does not have as many second homes as obviously Winhall in that Stratton area. But, we were seeing a slight spike, if you will, but I think it'll be offset by our remote learning. And we have large capacity. Our elementary school is so that's about 210, and that's pretty packed. Our high school, we could have a few more students, but I see that being offset. I do know, living here in Manchester and working in Arlington, that, the housing market is very, very hot, and everything is selling quickly in Arlington as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Anything that goes on the market right now is selling quickly.
One other thought just occurred to me, broadband. We have sufficient capacity for good broadband coverage across all of your districts to make the remote learning work okay? Is that not going to be a concern?
No, not for us. We went through that. That was, it's actually, those are fun problems to solve, if you will, because they're nuts and bolts problems. They don't, they don't keep you up at night worrying about somebody, getting cable COVID or something. So we went, and this spring we were able to put a few people on that project, get into the town. We put up some area Wi-Fi for people who don't have it. But right now, actually, even for Sandgate being so rural, that we have a very good connection, and each one of our children was able to get a device and be online.
And we're working with the state on the families that don't have it. We've got a good handle on who doesn't, and there's a lot of activity happening at the state level. So we're working towards getting everybody all set. We don't have very many families left who don't have connectivity.
I guess I was wondering what your sense is of how the students are relating to all of this. I mean, are they being helpful, cooperative, understanding? Or are they struggling with all of this? I'm sure there must be a certain amount of struggle no matter what. How do you think the students are relating to this?
I would say that throughout the last, 5 months or so, students and adults, frankly, have gone through stages of mourning and grieving. And as different milestones happen and you work through that, you kind of keep moving through this. I think there's a level of acceptance certainly now that did not exist even 3 months ago about, hey, we're going to be in this for a while. I met with a group of students last week, and the concerns that they expressed to me were primarily around relationships and the connection. And so they felt like, hey, we can navigate the academic portion of whatever this looks like. And I had a pretty diverse group of students I was speaking with. But it was how do we really connect with our teachers and with our peers? And so, we're looking at that. We're looking at how we can foster those relationships, even with all the social distancing and all of the guidelines that we need to follow. How do we find a new path to connection?
Yeah, Andrew, I've done a lot of work around trauma and those experiences and things. And I'm feeling very confident about our pre-K through 5 learners. The resiliency of young children is outstanding. The resiliency in life and those matters and getting through. And then, frankly, they don't know a whole lot different. If you're in first grade this year, this has been your whole life. And those children will adapt, and I think they have a much better chance. I'm very nervous about our high school students. I mean, there's such a vulnerable time in life, and the relationships that are formed. And I think if we all went back through our schooling, and I don't know how many of us would want to go back to middle school, and maybe even high school, but those are some real formative years that you're building things up. I'm not sure how much of that can be done remotely. It is very, very difficult to navigate those types of things and those social things. And so, my hope is I do see that a lot of the children, high school and middle school, out this summer, getting together socially appropriately. But I am very nervous about that factor that I don't really have an answer or a grip on right now, on how we're going to make sure, and then, this is all in the backdrop too, Andrew, of some of the largest social changes we're going through in the history of the United States. And, I really felt something was at a loss when this was occurring, and, started out at the end of May and in June. I mean, what a great opportunity to have, your children in school and be able to talk with them. I think, we lost a lot as a country by trying to do that remotely. I mean, the discussion, the emotions, and everything that people were feeling was really, our high school students kind of lost that because we weren't in school. Those are the emotions that they're going to need to feel to be able to grow and become more acceptance. And, we are moving in a much different direction as a country. And, as educators, we want to be on the forefront of that and guiding our students.
Wow. Well, my hat is off to both of you. You both have a really heavy lift coming here the next few weeks and months, and good luck. I want to thank Randi Lowe, the superintendent of the BRSU, Bill Bazyk, the superintendent of the BVSU. Folks, thanks again for your time, and good luck going forward in the new school year. It'll certainly be a different one from any of us will remember.